This is Robert Lee Brewer, and I'm here with C. Hope Clark to talk about beginning projects. C. Hope Clark is the author of the Carolina Slade Mysteries, the Edisto Island Mysteries, and a brand new series just releasing, and with a double book release, in fact, is the Craven County Mysteries. She's also the editor of Funds for Writers at fundsforwriters.com, and I want to just thank you for coming on here, Hope.
Oh, always lovely to talk to you, Robert. This is great.
Yeah. So my first question was going to be, what are you working on now? But I think you've got an answer already ready to go.
I do. I'm always working on a novel, and I'm always working on Funds for Writers, but I have a double book release that released November 30th on a new series, and it's a series I've been wanting to do for about 5 or 6 years, and I had to twist the arm of the publisher to kind of accept it, but it's fun. And I just signed a 3-book contract for 3 more books in the other 2 series, so there's always something going on.
Wow. Yeah, so this episode, when I asked you to get on this episode, I didn't know about the double book release, but we're talking about new projects and starting new projects. How do you, I know you've written other novels and other novel series. How do you go about putting together a double book release? How do you even get started on that type of project?
Well, I thought it was going to be 1 book until the publisher said, this is a new series. We're not releasing 1 book in a series and promising more. And especially in light of COVID, taking 1 year, 2 years to get book 2. So they said, if we're going to do this series, you've got to give us 2. And, this was during COVID, so I had a little more time to write. There was no conferences, there were no book signings, there's nothing to do but write. So I dug in, and this is a first for me. This year we're releasing 3 books.
Wow, that's amazing.
But with COVID, I thought I have no excuse not to write, so that's what I did.
That's a great attitude for going through COVID, for sure. I know I've been all over the map. Sometimes writing, sometimes anything but. So that's great. So before we talk about some of these other projects, what is different about the Craven County Mysteries from the other 2 series that you've done before?
Well, I wanted to do make this sort of a trifecta. As I already had an amateur sleuth, and I had a law enforcement official in terms of a police chief, and this one is a private investigator. And since it all happens in the low country of South Carolina, I've covered all 3 bases, and I hope to do a crossover where they all actually meet. The 2 protagonists in the other 2 series have met in crossover books, so this is just kind of bringing it around to cover all bases, I guess.
Oh, wow. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, it is. Oh, I love these books.
Yeah, fun to write. I'm sure it's a lot of fun to read as well. I love that whole... a lot of times people talk about world building for fantasy and science fiction, but I think it's applicable to old genres of writing, and this sounds like a fun experience in world building for sure.
It is. And I've designed 3 different worlds for these 3 strong protagonists, and it's fun revisiting them. I was just telling someone the other day, they said, oh, I hear you have another book out. Are you going to write another one? And I said, I'm always writing on a book. Between books, I actually get very bored, just extremely bored. I think I have a routine going now.
Yeah, that's good. I know, actually, why don't we talk about the routine stuff for a second? Do you feel like that helps you with starting the new projects, that you've kind of got that rhythm going?
Absolutely. And I've preached this ever since I've been in the business, is you need to write religiously and not just here and there when you feel like it, because I think when you keep those gears oiled, it's a lot easier to sit down and just pick up where you left off. And when I'm writing on a novel, it's 1,000 words a day minimum. It doesn't
Wow,
sound
that's
like
great.
much. I mean, to
Yeah.
some people write more, but I can maintain that. And what used to be difficult in reaching 1,000 words, I started off with 500. Now I can write 1,000 words without even thinking about it, and it works well.
That's great. Um, I know that you do other work with funds for writers, and I know in the past, and I don't know if you still do this, but like you used to do like grant proposals and projects like that. Do you feel like you approach writing novels differently than those types of projects, or do you think it's like kind of a similar uh, approach that you use for that?
Well, I think the discipline is the same. I have to set deadlines for the fiction. You always have deadlines for the freelancing and the grant writing and all of that. They come with deadlines. But when it comes to the fiction, sure, there's a contract deadline, but you need to have benchmarks in between so that you can get your words in by that ultimate deadline. And oh, absolutely, I have to religiously have a schedule set up, or it just doesn't work for me. But that's just me. It's,
Yeah. So the publisher will give you a deadline, but like you create your own deadlines of like hitting certain targets.
I do. I do. It's a minimum of 1,000 words a day, and I kind of work in a buffer so that if I have to miss a day or two in the mix, I have some breathing room in there. And of course, then I feel the urge to have to go back in and catch up. And I allow for a few weeks at the end for, of course, editing. And then, but I'm lucky to have a family that kind of supports me. I've got a husband that'll go, "Did you get your words in today?" Before he asked me, to go out on an errand or do you want to go see a movie or anything like that. It's like, "Did you get your words in?" Yeah, I got my words in. So it's a job. I've turned it into a job, but I think the fiction is a little different in that you sink into a new world, and I probably mentally think about it more throughout the day when I'm not writing than I would for nonfiction.
Yeah, yeah, and and that's great about the support system. I know I would not be as productive as I am if my wife wasn't always making sure, that I'm doing my stuff. So that's great.
Yeah, we're lucky. Hmm.
Yeah, we definitely are. Yeah, so if you're starting something completely new, let's say like a nonfiction project, are there things you found that like that help you get started from like zero, where you're not moving on the project at all, to actually like getting into a rhythm and moving? Because it's like one thing to like kind of have your rhythm and keep it going, but like kind of going from zero to moving.
Well, I will say when it comes to nonfiction, it's I will research the market first. Who I'm writing for. I want to make sure what they've done before that I am in keeping in line with. So I want to be very comfortable in the environment I'm stepping into. Then I do my research and I keep copious notes. I can't go anywhere without a notebook, and it's messy. I'm probably the only one that can understand it, but I I make notes and I do a loose outline, very loose, because I'm not a rigid outline person. And then it's a matter of just sitting down and creating that opening. Once I can land an opening, the
Mm-hmm.
rest flows. Nonfiction is a very easy write for me, and I think it's because I spent my previous career in more of a technical nonfiction arena, and the fiction is a little harder. But no, the
Yeah,
nonfiction just flows. Once I've got the research, the ideas start falling into line.
it's funny that you mention it that way. As you start talking about it, I think a lot of times when I'm doing blog posts or newsletters, it's kind of a similar feel. I'll start off with like kind of a loose outline where I know I want to hit certain points. And then, yeah, it's getting that opening. And then once I've got the opening, it's just like kind of like it flows out.
It does. It does.
So I know like when I do poetry, poetry's so much different than everything else that I write. Like I can just see an image or have a line pop in my head and I write a poem. But it seems like for everything else, I have to like kind of back up for a second, at least have like a rough idea of what I want to do and then do it.
Oh, I work the same way. You know, when I flip over into fiction, it's like running through mud for me. You know, I'm so used to writing nonfiction so fast and so cleanly, and fiction is a more of a struggle because you don't have any, you know, any things in concrete. It's all imagination, and you don't just fall into it and it flows. You've got backstory to work in, dialogue to get right. You know, which characters are in what scene, who's not going to show up in the series this time, who's a new one. You know, all of those moving pieces, as well as trying to think creatively and give the reader something that I haven't done before.
Yeah, so this is a curiosity question. When we do interviews all the time with authors that write novels, where are you on the plotter versus pantser spectrum of writing your novels?
I'm more of a pantser. I tried plotter from beginning to end one time in the early stages, and it was a disaster because I didn't get 5 chapters into the book before the rest of the outline was just shot. I had done so much different, and you know, you get into a chapter and go, oh, that reminds me. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. And so you start heading in a little different direction until by like chapter 5 or 6, the story has taken on a whole new light. I can't do it. But what I tend to do is longhand outline just snippets of ideas for what I call scenes, just moving the story along. Sometimes it turns into 2 or 3 chapters, sometimes 5 or 6, but I do that to get some ideas down, and then I sit down and write those chapters and see where they go, and then I do it again. So it's a hint of an outline, but not much.
It's not getting too far ahead of where you're at any
Right.
given time. It's like headlights.
Yeah, there you go.
See so far. Great. Well, I think this is a great start on starting projects. Thank you so much for coming on here. I want to let everyone know to find out more about C. Hope Clark. I mentioned fundsforwriters.com earlier, but also go to her website, www.chopeclark.com. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.